So let's continue. So the first legal normative act that we need to analyze is, of course, the European Union Cybersecurity Strategy of 2013 that is called Open, Safe and Secure Cyberspace. I want to start from some statement, yes, that for cyberspace to remain open and free, the same norms, principles, and values that the EU upholds offline must also apply online. So fundamental rights, democracy, and the rule of law must be protected in cyberspace. It's the main statement of this strategy. So this strategy it was a strategic document that set out the overall objectives and priorities of the EU cybersecurity policy. It regulated approaches and measures aimed at ensuring security in the EU cyberspace, including measures to combat cyber threats, enhance the cybersecurity of crucial infrastructures, support research and development in this area, and other aspects of cybersecurity. And this document promoted coordination of cybersecurity measures among member states. It states that EU's core values apply in both the digital and physical worlds, as we mentioned before. And principles of cybersecurity that were mentioned in these documents are, first of all, its protection of fundamental rights, freedom of expression, personal data, and privacy. Then access for all, for everybody. Democratic and effective multilateral governance and shared responsibility and for security. And the EU vision presented in the strategy is articulated in 5 strategic priorities that aim to address the challenges highlighted above. So, achieve cyber resilience, reduce cybercrime, develop cyber defense policies and capabilities linked to the common security and defense policy, develop industrial and technological resources for cybersecurity, create a coherent international policy on cyberspace for the EU and promote the EU's core values. And the document also detailed the responsibilities of specific bodies, coordination between the competent NIS authorities, law enforcement agencies, and defense in implementing the cyber action plan. And at first I decided to give you the analysis of the documents in chronological way, but of course I think it's better to analyze the cybersecurity strategy of 2013 and the next one, the cybersecurity strategy of 2020, just one after another. The same we will do within the NIS directives and then in chronological way. Another cybersecurity strategy that is called EU Cybersecurity Strategy for the digital decade. And on 16th of December 2020, this new cybersecurity strategy was presented. It aims to ensure an open and global internet with strong safeguards where there are risks to the security and fundamental rights of people in the EU. Of course, this document takes into account the progress of the previous strategy and defines the application of the 3 key initiatives: policy, investment, and regulatory of the EU cybersecurity policy, which relate to the following areas: cooperation of open and global cyberspace, technological sovereignty, prevention, deterrence and response, leadership, and resilience. And this new strategy is a key component of the shaping Europe's digital future. It's another, yes, this policy of digital transformation, yes, of digitalization. Also, the European Recovery Plan for Europe the Security Union Strategy 2020 and 2025, the EU's global strategy for foreign and security policy, and the European Council Strategic Agenda 2019 till 2020. And this strategy, as I mentioned, yes, it aims to ensure a global and open internet with strong safeguards to address the risks to security and fundamental rights and freedoms of people in Europe. And building on the progress made under the previous strategies, it contains concrete proposals for the application of three main instruments, yes, regulatory, investment, and policy instruments, to address three areas of the EU action. First, sustainability, technological sovereignty, and leadership. Next, building operational capabilities to prevent, deter, and respond, and development a global and open cyberspace. Cybersecurity should be integrated, according to this strategy, yes, cybersecurity should be integrated into all of these digital investments, including key technologies such as artificial intelligence, encryption, and quantum computing, using incentives, obligations, and benchmarks. And this could stimulate the growth of the European cybersecurity industry and provide the confidence needed to facilitate the phase-out of legacy systems. And, for example, the European Defense Fund will support European cyber defense solution as a part of European defense technology and industrial base. Cybersecurity is included in external financial instruments to support partners of the EU, including the neighborhood policy. Ukraine also is a part of the neighborhood policy, development, and international cooperation instrument. By preventing the misuse of technology, protecting crucial infrastructure, and ensuring the integrity of supply chains, the EU also ensures compliance with EU norms, rules, and principles of responsible state behavior. By the way, the strategy envisages the establishment of joint cyber unit to serve as a virtual and physical platform for cooperation between the different cybersecurity communities in the EU, focusing on operational and technical coordination against major cross-border cyber incidents and threats. And this joint cyber unit, it's not like additional autonomous body and does not affect the competence and powers of national cybersecurity authorities of the EU member states. And also, the strategy defines that the EU leadership on standards, norms, and frameworks in cyberspace should be achieved by enhancing international standardization, promoting responsible state behavior in cyberspace, complying with Budapest Convention on Cybercrime that we mentioned before, and working with partners and the multi-stakeholder community. And the next very important document that we need also look through, it's directive concerning measures for high common level of security of networks and information system across the Union. Or if shortly, yes, saying it's NIS Directive 1, because now we have NIS Directive 2 since 2022. This directive concerns measures to establish a high common level of security for networks and information system in the EU, with the aim of achieving a high common standard of network and information security in all the EU member states. The directive aims to improve the EU cybersecurity and ensure the resilience of information systems and networks in the context of the increasing number of threats in cyberspace. And we can, I can present you the information in such table, yes, to make it like briefly. The first NIS directive provides for legal measures to improve the overall level of cybersecurity in the EU in order to facilitate the overall functioning of the internal market. It is based on three main pillars. First, in order to achieve a high level of readiness of member states, the directive requires member states to adopt a national strategy for the security of network and informational systems. Member states are also required to designate national computer security incident response teams, or SORTs, responsible for handling risks and incidents, and a competent national network informational security authority and a single point of contact. And the single point of contact shall act as a liaison to ensure cross-border cooperation between member state authorities with the relevant authorities in the other member states with NIS cooperation group. So it's about cooperation, yes? Next, the NIS directive established a NIS cooperation group to support and facilitate strategic cooperation and information exchange between member states. And third network, to facilitate rapid and effective operational cooperation between national thirds. Again, about exchange information, about cooperation with these parties. And short, the NIS directive ensures that cybersecurity measures are taken in 7 sectors that are vital to economy of the European Union and society, and that rely heavily on the IKT, such as energy, transport, banking, financial market infrastructure, drinking water, healthcare, and digital infrastructure. And also public and private organizations designated by member states are essential service operators in these sectors and required to conduct cybersecurity risk assessments and implement appropriate and proportionate security measures. They are required to report serious incidents to the relevant authorities. And in addition, providers of key digital service, such as search engines, cloud computing services, and online marketplaces, must comply with the security and notification requirement of the directive. At the same time, the latter are subject to the so-called light regulatory regime, which means, among other measures, that they are subject to the jurisdiction of the member states for the whole of the EU and are not subject to exposed supervisory measures. So, this directive also contains a number of requirements for incident response and risk-based technical security measures. The requirements are aimed at improving cross-border cooperation in the field of information, network security, and promoting a risk management culture. And in order to improve this cross-border cooperation, it is this directive that provides for the establishment of a network of these computer security response teams. CERTs also, we have such in Ukraine, for example. And one more very important point that was done in this directive, that it set standards for the security of networks and informational systems. It's Article 19 and 20 about these standards, are about these standards. So the directive sets common standards and requirements for critical infrastructure operation and digital service providers, and it contributes to improving the overall level of cybersecurity in the EU and protecting critical information systems for cyber threats. So it plays really a key role in enhancing the resilience and security of networks and informational systems in the EU, which is crucial to protecting infrastructure, safeguarding citizens' data, and ensuring the functioning of modern digital society. And of course, it also helps to improve cooperation, as we said several times. And till 2022, it was one of the main documents, yes, but then some amendments were done, and now we have new NIS directive, or NIS Directive 2. It is called Directive on Measures for a High Common Level of Cybersecurity across the Union, and amending some other regulations. But this is the previous one also. So, this directive replaced the previous one, yes, and it was made because cyber threats are constantly growing, evolving, yes, and of course, in order to combat them, yes, to counter them, legislation should be changed from according to the real situation, yes, in real world. And NIS2 directive established a baseline for cybersecurity risk management measures and reporting obligations across all sectors covered by the directive, such as energy, transport, healthcare, and digital infrastructure. It is a legislative act that aims to achieve a high common level of cybersecurity in the European Union. Compared to NIS1, NIS2 introduced stricter supervisory and enforcement measures for national authorities. And also, I propose you to look some main points, as this is also one of the main documents, yes, if we're talking about cybersecurity in the European Union, and we can analyze it within this directive or table, sorry. So, NIS2 directive expands the scope of NIS by adding new sectors based on their importance to the economy and society, and by introducing a clear size limit, meaning that all medium and large companies in the selected sectors will be covered. At the same time, it leaves member states with some flexibility to identify smaller organizations with a security risk profile. Second, NIS2 removes the distinction between essential service operators and digital service providers. We talked about that in the first table, yes? And businesses will be classified on the basis of their importance and split into essential and critical categories, which will be subject to different supervisory regimes. Also NIS2 strengthens and streamlines security and reporting requirements for companies by imposing a risk management approach that provides a minimum list of essential security elements that must be applied. And NIS direction introduces more precise provisions on the incident reporting process, the content of reports, and also timeframes. At the European level, NIS2 strengthens the cybersecurity of the supply chain of key information and communication technologies. And member states, in cooperation with the Commission and NISA, can carry out a coordinated risk assessment of crucial supply chains, building on the successful approach taken in the context of the Commission recommendation of cybersecurity 5G network. Also, NIS2 introduces stricter supervisory measures, as I mentioned before, for national authorities, stricter implementation requirements, and aims to harmonize sanctions regimes across member states. And NIS2 also strengthens the role of the cooperation group in shaping strategic policy decisions and improves information exchange and cooperation between member states' authorities, and strengthens operational cooperation, in particular on some cyber crisis management. And also it established a framework with responsible key actors for coordinated vulnerability disclosure for newly discovered vulnerabilities across the EU, and established the EU register in this area managed by the ENISA. ENISA is Cybersecurity Agency. So these strategies and these two directives, they are main documents, yes, if we're talking about the ensuring cybersecurity. But as I said before, of course, we need to look through some other additional legal normative acts. And one of them is, now I will go in chronological way. Of course, it's a digital single market strategy for Europe 2015, because a lot of threats to cybersecurity appeared when we are talking about the operation of this market. So, what is the digital single market? It is a market where goods, services, persons, and capital move freely, and where individuals and businesses can access and transact online without restriction, subject to transparent competition and an adequate level of protection of the personal data of all consumers. So this document, sorry. Is a strategic document presented by the European Commission for the development and implementation of the digital single market in the EU. It contains key initiatives and priorities for digital transformation in the EU, including e-commerce, copyright, cybersecurity, digital skills, and other aspects of the digital economy and society. It aims to develop and improve the digital market in the EU and ensure its efficient operation for the benefit of citizens and businesses in all EU member states. The digital single market is based on affordable and reliable services and high-speed networks with a strong focus on privacy, data protection, and consumer rights, and on encouraging of innovations, of course. And this requires a strong, competitive, and dynamic telecommunications sector to make necessary investments also and to embrace innovations such as cloud computing, big data tools, and of course, Internet of Things. And the digital market strategy is built on 3 pillars. First, better access for consumers and businesses of online goods and services across Europe. And this requires a rapid removal of key differences between the online and offline worlds to overcome barriers to cross-border and online activity. Also, creating the right conditions for digital networks and services to thrive. This requires high-speed, secure, and reliable infrastructure and content services supported by the right regulatory environment for innovation, investment, fair competition, and a level playing field. And the third one is maximizing the growth potential of our the European digital economy. This requires investment in ICT infrastructure and technologies such as, again, cloud computing, big data, but as well as research and innovation to boost industrial competitiveness, as well as better public services and inclusiveness and, of course, skills. The next document, I'm sure that you all know it. It's the General Data Protection Regulation. And the full name, yes, Regulation on the Protection of Natural Persons with regard to the processing of personal data and on the free movement of such data, yes, and repealing the previous directive. So, this regulation is legislation, is very important, yes, legislative act on personal data protection, which replaced previous directive, and the regulation contains rules governing the processing of personal data, aimed at protecting the rights and freedoms of individuals, in particular the right to protect of personal data. So, the regulation contains the following provisions. First of all, it's about general provision on personal data processing, rights of personal data subjects, obligations of operators processing personal data, liability of operators processing personal data, transfer of personal data to third countries of international organizations, supervisory authorities and procedures for ensuring compliance with the regulations. So, this regulation has played an important role in the field of personal data protection in the EU. And its adoption created a uniform standard of data protection for all EU member states and strengthened the rights and freedoms of citizens regarding their personal data. And also, of course, it's establishing rules for the processing of personal data in the EU, including rules for the collection, storage, transfer, and use of such data. It guarantees the rights of individuals to control their personal data, including the right to access to this data, the right to rectify it, and the right to prohibit processing in certain cases. It also establishes requirements for notification of data security breaches and appropriate sanctions for violation of these rules. And the main objectives of regulation is to ensure a high level of protection of the privacy and personal data of the EU citizens in cyberspace and other areas of data processing, thereby contributing to better control and security of personal data. To tell the truth, it's a really very important document, and in the European Union, all the individuals and also legal entities, they try to they follow it. Of course, it also defines what data are sensitive, for example, what are not, but also we need to look through some some additional information, about it, because, for example, now I also work at one project. It's called State's Practice of Human Rights Justification, Studying Civil Society Engagement and Human Rights through the lens of gender and intersectionality. And we work on some issues connected with the rights of our women migrants. That moved to the European Union after the full-scale invasion of Russia to Ukraine. And we get some information that, for example, some data that are not sensitive within, like in usual, situation, like language, for example, or nationality, they became sensitive if we are talking about migration. And this requires another way of proceeding, another way to ask the permission to proceed this data, to get this data, and so on. So this is absolutely very important document, and it contains these regulations on data security that is an essential part of cybersecurity, of course. So, of course, we need to learn it if we're talking about cybersecurity. The next, it's the Digital Services Act. This act regulates online intermediaries and platforms such as the marketplaces, social networks, content sharing platforms, app stores, and online travel and accommodation platforms. Its main goal is to prevent illegal and harmful activities online and the spread of disinformation, and it ensures user safety, protects fundamental rights, and creates a fair and open online platform environment. Also, this act protects consumer and their fundamental rights online by setting clear and very proportionate rules. It fosters innovations, growth, and competitiveness, and facilitates the scaling up of smaller platforms, SMEs and startups. And the roles of users, platforms, and public authorities are balanced according to the European values, placing citizens at the center. And here you can see some, regulation and some advantages of this act to the citizens, for the providers of digital services, for society, and for business users. And as of 17 February 2024, this act, these rules apply to all platforms, and now it is in action. Another very important legislative act that also is related to data, but to data management, it's regulation on European Data Governance, or Data Governance Act. It aims to increase trust in information sharing, strengthen mechanisms to facilitate access to data and overcome technical barriers to reuse of information, and it envisages the establishment and development of common European data spaces in strategic areas, involving both public and private actors in the following sectors: agriculture, health, finance, energy, environment, manufacturing, skills, mobility, and public administration. The law entered into force on the 23rd of June 2022 and became applicable from September 2023. The next document is the Artificial Intelligence Act. It came in force this year. Yes, I don't remember the months now, but just in spring. And this document aims to protect fundamental rights, democracies, rule of law, and environmental sustainability from high-risk artificial intelligence, while stimulating innovation and establishing Europe as a leader in this field. The regulation establishes obligation for artificial intelligence based on potential risks and level of impact. And the new rules prohibit certain artificial intelligence applications that threaten the rights of citizens, including biometric categorization system based on sensitive characteristics and untargeted collection of facial images from the internet or CCTV footage to create facial recognition databases. And citizens will have the right to lodge complaints against artificial intelligence systems and receive explanations for decisions based on high-risk artificial intelligence systems that affect their rights. The next legislative act is regulation establishing a framework for European digital identity. Very interesting legislative act. This initiative aims to support the Union transformation towards a digital single market. And here we have some words from Ursula von der Leyen. She said that whenever an application or website asks us to create a new digital identity or to log in easily through a large platform, we have no idea what happens to our data in reality. That's why the Commission will propose a secure European ID. One that we trust and that any citizen can use anywhere in Europe to do anything from pay taxes to rent and buy. Technologies that we can use to control what data is used and how it is used. So, digital identification is a digital representation of a person or entity. It can be used in interactions and transactions. Attributes contain information about an entity. This can include information such as formal name or date of birth, as well as information from other organizations such as professional qualification, bank balance, medical history. The regulation aims to ensure for cross-border use and its access to higher secure and reliable electronic identification solutions, that public and private services can rely on reliable and secure digital identification solutions, that individuals and legal entities have the right to use digital identification solutions, that these solutions are linked to a variety of attributes and allow for targeted sharing and identity data limited to the needs of the specific service requested, and adoption of qualified trust services in the EU and level playing field for their provision. One more, it's regulation, European law on protection against cyber information, or in other words, law on cyber resilience. This act, yes, this act is a regulatory framework that describes the cybersecurity requirements for hardware and software products with digital elements placed on the European Union market. And these acts, two main problems are being addressed, yes? First, it's poor security of products with digital elements reflected in widespread vulnerabilities and insufficient and inconsistent provision of security updates to address them, and insufficient understanding of access to information by users, which prevent them from choosing products with appropriate cybersecurity features or using them in a secure manner. And examples of products with digital elements you can see here. It's end devices, software, and components, both hardware and software. And prior to the European Security Act, the various acts and initiatives were taken at Union at national level, and they only partially addressed the identified cybersecurity challenges and risks, creating legislative mosaic in the internal market. And this was this act. It was some kind of decision, yes, because it increased legal. The previous regulation increased legal uncertainty for both manufacturers and users of these products, yes. And this act, it was like a decision. And one more, it's a regulation on digital operation resilience for the financial sectors. It is a regulation that entered into force in 2023 and will apply from 17th of January 2025. It aims to strengthen the IT security of financial organizations, such as banks, insurance companies, and investment firms, and ensure that the financial sector in Europe remains resilient in the event of a major operational disruption. Its short name is DORA, yes, and it also said that DORA harmonizes the rules relating to operational resilience for the financial sector applicable to 20 different types of financial institutions and third-party IKT service providers. And regulation recognizes that IKT incidents and the lack of operation resilience can jeopardize the soundness of the entire financial system, even if there is sufficient capital for traditional risk categories. Also, crucial infrastructure resilience and repeal directive. Yes, it sets out the obligation of EU member states to take specific measures to ensure the uninterrupted provision of essential services to support a vital function of economic activities in the internal market. And EU Cyber Solidarity Act of 2023, yes, it aims to support the identification and awareness of significant large-scale cybersecurity threats and incidents, improve the preparedness and protection of critical facilities and essential services such as hospitals and utilities, and strengthen the EU level of solidarity, coordinated crisis management and response capacities of member states, and contribute to a safe and secure digital landscape for citizens and businesses. So, as I mentioned, of course, it's not like the whole document, but they are the main. And here is the structure of the course, Cybersecurity Law and Society, exactly Cybersecurity.Part, yes, that will be delivered by me. And within these topics that you can see, of course, we can talk more about all these issues, all these documents, all the institutional tools of the EU cybersecurity policy, and combating the EU cyber threats. And here you can have the contacts of me and manager of the project. So if you have some questions, you can ask, because we are limited in time. I see that I have 1 minute left. So thank you for your attention. And if you have questions, I will answer with a great pleasure. Thanks.